Joining us now here on set, Democratic Congressman Jake Auchincloss of Massachusetts. Congressman, good to see you again. So let's start here with what we may be seeing in Rafah, potentially an all-out operation. Do you think that that's the right course of action for Israel? And we should note it comes as the Kurt Campbell, who is the U.S. Deputy Secretary of State, speaking at a NATO event late yesterday, says he does not believe that the U.S., the administration does not believe that Israel's current strategy could lead to a, quote, total victory over Hamas.
I agree with the Deputy Secretary. Hamas right now is hunkered down in Rafah. It's holding hostages in Rafah. It is going to use the Rafah crossing to resupply and re-equip those 4 battalions in Rafah to launch further attacks on Israel. And that is Sinwar himself promising that they will break further ceasefires if they are agreed to, which is why Israel deserves the military latitude to defeat Hamas's senior commanders and its battalions. However, that requires an integrated plan. As Jake Sullivan said yesterday, a holistic, integrated approach that pairs military operations with governance so that the Palestinian population is not just faced with the elimination of Hamas as a governing entity, but also with an alternative to Hamas that can provide humanitarian aid, infrastructure, and security. Right.
And to this point, of course, Prime Minister Netanyahu has backed away from the long-held U.S. hope for a two-state solution. So this comes as President Biden has taken a lot of heat from both Republicans and Democrats alike with saying that he will not supply lethal offensive aid to Israel for a Rafah invasion, even as U.S. still provides, of course, defensive operations. Talk to us about your thoughts on the president's decision, what you think could happen next.
I think the takes from the left and the right are both unfair. The right is saying, oh, Joe Biden is letting domestic politics wag the dog and dictating his strategy in the Middle East. That's incorrect. Joe Biden remains ironclad in his commitment to Israel's security and the imperative that Hamas be defeated. From the left, we're hearing, oh, it's too little, too late, and Israel is going to continue to commit war crimes. The administration rejects claims of genocide against Israel, as do I, and supports the reality that Hamas has in its mandate the murder of Jews worldwide and that any permanent ceasefire requires the elimination of Hamas. Joe Biden, as he has for the last 7 months, is walking a tightrope in the Middle East. He is saying to Prime Minister Netanyahu and the War Cabinet, yes, Hamas cannot be part of the future for the Strip. But if you're fighting a counterinsurgency operation that requires both military and governance options on the table, and right now the War Cabinet is providing only the military one.
Right. Let's turn to Ukraine now. We mentioned just a few minutes ago the Secretary of State made a surprise visit to Kyiv. This comes at a moment of increased Russian sabotage across Europe, as well as some advances on the battlefield. So that U.S. aid that finally got passed is starting to arrive. But it's a difficult moment in the conflict.
It is, and the 4 months of delay caused by Senate and House Republicans has caused retrograde action in northeast of Ukraine. There's no question about it. We have to surge that materiel to provide Ukraine the targeting and munitions they need to be able to hold the line there. But more fundamentally, policymakers who are arguing that we cannot give Ukraine long-range surface-to-surface or air-to-surface weaponry because it risks escalation with Russia have the calculation exactly backwards. The escalation we need to be worried about is that Russia takes Kiev and then goes into Warsaw or Moldova or Lithuania. And we're already seeing what they're doing with sabotage of NATO infrastructure throughout the entire bloc. We have to equip Ukraine with every weapon it needs to credibly threaten core Russian interests in Crimea and within the Russian heartland itself.
And lastly, and briefly, what's your level of concern to see Putin and Xi Jinping meet again this week?
It underscores that Putin is Xi Jinping's junior partner and that they have an axis determined to upend the rules-based order. And we have to architect global alliances, not just NATO, not just in the Indo-Pacific, but globally to counteract it.
All right. Democratic Congressman Jake Auchincloss of the great Commonwealth of Massachusetts. Thank you, Congressman, for being with us again this morning. We'll talk to you again soon.